You remember Paul has been brought before the authorities in Jerusalem. Then he was transferred to Caesarea, and he was brought before the authorities there, before Festus. And he was left to rot in jail there for 2 years. So what he does was he appealed to Caesar because he felt that he was being treated improperly by the local authorities that wanted to transfer him back to Jerusalem. And if you remember, the plan was that he'd be ambushed on the way back to Jerusalem and killed. So Paul is now before this King Agrippa. And Paul is about to give this beautiful explanation. Really, all Paul is going to do here is share his testimony about what Jesus did in his life. Okay? And this is really powerful. This is an incredible explanation of all Paul has gone through and how he used to be a violent man. He used to be a zealous Pharisee who was fighting against the cause of Jesus of Nazareth. And Paul encounters Jesus, and of course his whole life flips the other way. And I'm sure many of us here can relate to what happened in Paul's life, where for the longest time we fought on the side of evil, where we were part of Satan's little force, you know? Our father was the devil. Just to put it as politically correct as possible, your daddy was Satan. And now my daddy is the perfect holy God of heaven and earth. If you're a Christian today, you can say the same thing. Jesus Christ is my Lord. My daddy is the creator of heaven and earth. But many still live under the lordship of Satan, serving themselves and their own selfish needs. I used to be a part of Satan's kingdom. I used to be a drug user, an alcoholic, a sexually immoral person, someone who was completely selfish and did whatever he wanted, someone who influenced others toward evil as well, someone who would invite others to join in the addictions and thought it was funny if people would join. That is my old life. But at some point, each of us encountered Jesus, and for me, I took the deal. I said, okay, I'm in on the Christian deal that if I receive Jesus as my Savior, my sins are forgiven. I'm made into a new person. The old person dies, really, and a new person is born. And that new person becomes a servant of God for the rest of his life. And that is the deal that I took. Some people will reach that point of encountering Jesus and say no to the deal, and they will continue on in the road of Satan to destruction. But that's where the choice comes in. God will draw us sovereignly to himself, but he will not violate our free will. He will not force us into his loving arms and kind of grab us and let me squeeze you, you know. That's not it. He invites us in. He calls us to himself. But at that moment, I remember the moment, I had to make the choice to call out to Jesus Christ and say, Jesus, save me. I made that choice then, and I remember that it was like, I can remember that day in 2012 when I went on my knees, and I could feel God saying to me, call out to my son, Jesus Christ. And then there was just a pause, like all of heaven was waiting to see what I would do next. What are you going to do next? Everything okay over here? Everything all right? Okay, we're good. All right. So I was at that moment of decision. Will you call out to Jesus, or will you say no thanks? And that's the decision we all make every day. Is every day I wake up, am I going to live today as a Christian, or am I going to live today sort of drifting away? Or am I going to say yes to Jesus for the first time today, if I don't know Jesus yet, right? And so Paul is going to share this testimony with Agrippa. And then it says this. So Paul is in front of this whole court. And if you've ever been in a courtroom, stressful. It is really stressful. In fact, recently I went and I visited Samantha Tamayo was in town for sort of a reunion at the drug court. And Chelsea and I actually went over there with her, and we were in this courtroom, and it's a scary thing, isn't it? There's the judge, and there's the person kind of typing next to him who's recording every word you say, and there's the lawyer, the defense lawyer, and his assistant, and there's all these people in the crowd, and it's like, whoa, this is kind of nerve-wracking, And you got the judge up there, calling each person forward and saying, how you doing? What have you been up to, And I'm thinking to myself, if they say the wrong thing, there's a sheriff's marshal right there to take them to jail, So it's a little stressful to be in a courtroom, and I imagine Paul is a little stressed out right at this moment because he's before this king, and I'm sure there's lawyers there, there's a crowd there, but Paul is about to make his defense. So Paul, with a gesture of his hand, started his defense. He says, I am fortunate, King Agrippa, that you are the one hearing my defense against all these accusations made by the Jewish leaders. For I know you are an expert on Jewish customs and controversies. Now please listen to me patiently. As the Jewish leaders are well aware, I was given a thorough Jewish training from my earliest childhood among my own people and in Jerusalem. If they would admit it, they know that I have been a member of the Pharisees. So the most important religious leaders of Israel, he was in on that. He was a Pharisee. It says the strictest sect of our religion. Now I am on trial because I am looking forward to the fulfillment of God's promise made to our ancestors. In fact, that is why the 12 tribes of Israel worship God night and day, and they share the same hope I have. Yet, O King, they say it is wrong for me to have this hope. Why does it seem incredible to any of you that God can raise the dead? Now that is a darn good question, isn't it? Why does it seem strange to anybody that God can raise the dead? He made the universe from nothing. Why would it be so hard for him to raise someone from the dead? He designed your eyeballs. He designed your senses, your mouth, your nose, your body, your circulatory system, your blood. All your organs that work just right together for your body to function. He designed plants and things for you to eat. It's all set up just so. And if God can make all of that just by speaking it into existence from nothing, how hard is it for him to raise someone from the dead? It can't be that hard. If God can do all this, if he can give me a voice to speak right now, how hard can it be for him to raise someone from the dead? Can't be that hard. God can do anything. He can make an entire universe. You ever look up at the sky at night, at the stars? He can make that whole universe from nothing. It's not such a big deal for him to raise the dead. That's the whole point. All of us are going to die. We were talking about that this Sunday morning. We were talking about loss and losing a loved one. And Scott was telling us about how pretty much everyone he knows is dead. And I totally just can relate. I remember my grandma Monica, she would always say, oh, Justin, everyone I've ever known is dead. She was in her late 80s, so, everyone she already ever knew is dead, She goes to a different funeral every week, and everyone dies. That is the big problem of the human race, right? And this is the whole solution here in the Word of God. Resurrection, being raised from the dead by God to eternal life. There it is. It says, I used to believe that I ought to do everything I could to oppose the followers of Jesus of Nazareth. I did the same thing. I thought, I am going to prove that Christianity, that religion, that Catholicism growing up for me is just a bygone, backwards, weird religious thing that needs to disappear so we can go into the modern era of technology and science. And that is a prevalent narrative in our world today, right? The progress narrative, which is a lie, and it is a joke, but guess who put that in my head? Public school system. Yep. I was going to CCD on Wednesdays, but Monday through Friday I was going to public schools, and they were telling me that religion is stupid and science has, discredited the Bible. Later on, when I did my own research, I found out none of that was true. And in fact, there is huge amounts of historical and scientific evidence for God's existence and for the authority of the Bible and for the historical accuracy of the Old Testament and the New Testament that no serious scholar of history doubts that Jesus of Nazareth existed. I was never told any of that, though. But the truth is, I didn't want to believe that God was real because I didn't want moral accountability. I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do. And so I used to believe, just like Paul did, that I ought to oppose the followers of Jesus of Nazareth, and I did. I used to make fun of religion. I used to make fun of Jesus' followers in this world. I used to call all religious people are hypocrites, and on and on and on, you know? Just constantly trying to stick it to Christians. And Paul went further, though. He says, authorized by the leading priest, I caused many of the believers in Jerusalem to be sent to prison, and I cast my vote against them when they were condemned to death. Many times I had them whipped in the synagogues to try to get them to curse Christ. I was so violently opposed to them that I even hounded them to distant cities of foreign lands. If you remember, when the followers of Jesus fled from Jerusalem, Paul went to the high priest and asked for letters of introduction to these cities they were fleeing to so he could pursue them there and continue to attack them and fight them and arrest them. Then it says, one day I was on such a mission to Damascus, armed with the authority and commission of the leading priests. About noon, Your Majesty, a light from heaven, brighter than the sun, shone down on me and my companions. We all fell down, and I heard a voice saying to me in Aramaic, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? It is hard for you to fight against my will. Who are you, sir? I asked. And the Lord replied, I am Jesus, the one you are persecuting. Now stand up, for I have appeared for you to appoint you as my servant and my witness. You are to tell the world about this experience, and about other times I will appear to you, and I will protect you from both your own people and the Gentiles. Yes, I am going to send you to the Gentiles to open their eyes so they may turn from darkness to light and from the power of Satan to God. Then they will receive forgiveness for their sins and be given a place among God's people who are set apart by faith in me. We've never heard this part of Paul's testimony, even when it's originally declared in Acts, when it first happens. We do not get this long-form version until right now. And I love this. Jesus is saying, I'm going to send you to the Gentile world, and you're going to help open their eyes so they may turn from darkness to light and from the power of Satan to God. See, the whole Gentile world really was under the power of Satan at this point in time. I mean, the only place where God was really active in the world, for the most part, was in Israel, in Jerusalem. So, now, today, the whole world has been, in many ways, turned from the power of Satan to God, right? But, of course, we see the spiritual battle playing out to certain extents in every country in the world, whether it's the United States or the United Kingdom or countries in Africa or countries in Asia or India or Japan right now, or China has been threatening India China's been threatening Japan recently about Taiwan. And then you have, I believe it's Bosnia, there's problems occurring again. So you see the spiritual battle kind of going back and forth, even to this very day, right? It says, then they will receive forgiveness for their sins and be given a place among God's people who are set apart by faith in me. So, when we become Christians, we are set apart and brought into the family of God, no matter who we are. Does not matter what you've done, who we are, how bad you've been in the past. Your slate is wiped clean, and you are put into the family of God who are set apart by faith in Jesus. And so Paul continues, O King Agrippa, I was not disobedient to that vision from heaven. I preached first to those in Damascus, then in Jerusalem and throughout all Judea, and also to the Gentiles, that all must turn from their sins and turn to God and prove they have changed by the good things they do. Interesting. So the evidence that we're really Christians is our good deeds. That we're now doing good things and not bad things. Some Jews arrested me in the temple for preaching this, and they tried to kill me. But God protected me so that I am still alive today to tell these facts to everyone, from the least to the greatest. I teach nothing except what the prophets and Moses said would happen, that the Messiah would suffer and be the first to rise from the dead, as a light to Jews and Gentiles alike. God protected me, he says. And this is all according to what Moses already said. He's saying this is all just according to what the Torah has already explained. He says, he's saying, I'm not really an enemy of the Jews, but they think I'm their enemy, right? God protected me, that the Messiah would suffer and be the first to rise from the dead. Incredible message that Paul gives right there. But it doesn't quite get through to Festus or King Agrippa. Suddenly Festus shouted, Paul, you are insane! Too much study has made you crazy. But Paul replied, I'm not insane, most excellent Festus. I am speaking the sober truth. And King Agrippa knows about these things. I speak frankly, for I am sure these events are all familiar to him, for they were not done in a corner. King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? I know you do. Agrippa interrupted him. Do you think you can make me a Christian so quickly? Probably a few of you have thought that over the years that I've been here. You think you can make me a Christian so quickly, Justin? Well, yes, I do. And if it's not come yet, stick around, it will. Paul replied, whether quickly or not, I pray to God that both you and everyone in this audience might become the same as I am, except for these chains. So he's in chains as he's giving this message. He says, I want everyone in this room to become like I am, except for the chains, I guess. Then the king, the governor, Bernice, and all the others stood and left. As they talked it over, they agreed, this man hasn't done anything worthy of death or imprisonment. And Agrippa said to Festus, he could be set free if he hadn't appealed to Caesar. He could be set free, but he's already made this appeal to the Supreme Court, you might say, so he has to continue to go on. And that's obviously God's will that Paul would end up in Rome to preach the gospel there. Do you think this was a little stressful for Paul? Probably. But it's worth it for God's kingdom.